My guest is the founder of PILO, Performance Improvement in Our Education System, the improvement of learning outcomes. And that makes me a little nostalgic because when I met her, I was a school teacher and we were talking outcomes-based education. She was then the MEC for education. I think the first MEC in democratic South Africa for Gauteng. Mary Metcalfe, good to see you again.
Hi, Victor. It's lovely to talk to you again.
You were the first MEC for education in Gauteng, am I right?
Yes, in 1994, we were all new to government, and it was an amazing 5 years.
And you're still in education as we speak. PILO is about improving learning outcomes. Do I sense a hangover from the outcomes-based education days?
No, this is about recognizing that despite all of the gains made in education since 1994, the learning opportunities for the majority of young people is still short-selling those young people in terms of their aspirations, hopes, and dreams, and that we need to, at a massive scale across the country, improve the opportunities that young people have within the system to achieve their potential. I don't believe that the results that we're seeing match what our learners are capable of.
In what way would you say we are selling them short? This is Women's Month after all. If the women of 1956 were marching against past laws in education, where are we supposed to be marching?
There's many places in education where we should be doing better. We have not addressed the infrastructural inequalities that we inherited in 1994, and it is still children in rural communities. It is children in what were the previous Bantustans who have the greatest backlog in their schools in terms of infrastructure, water, sanitation, classrooms. So that would be something that young people are indeed marching against. The second thing that is should be a concern to all South Africans is the high level of dropout. That so many learners leave school during high school and don't leave with any piece of paper in their hand that makes them feel that they are included in society. So we need to address the poor performance in primary schools so that we can build a base for learning that will keep learners in secondary schools so that they can learn confidently and leave with a qualification. Those are at least two things.
Confidently leaving the school with a qualification. I remember Koos Becker of Naspers at one point saying that he would rather hire employees from other countries. I think he mentioned India at the time. Are things that bad that we can't say with confidence our schools are preparing our learners for the world of work?
Absolutely. Too many learners are leaving way before they even write the grade 12 exam, the National Senior Certificate. And lots of employers are saying that the poor quality of the passes means that they have to re-educate learners before they can really do the work that's required of them, and which they are quite capable of doing. There's a massive project in this country called Harambee, which starts with learners in grade 12 on the whole and identifies a match between where they are, their underlying abilities, and job opportunities. And what that research and the research that supports Harambee has found is that there's young learners who do in fact have a National Senior Certificate, but whose performance in the basic skills of numeracy and literacy required for the workplace are not what they should be, but they have the ability. And that's what we have to keep remembering. Our learners are capable, they are intelligent, And somehow within the school system, we're not ably and adequately supporting them to achieve that potential.
Mary, you were there when we made the transition from what I can call Bantu education to the democratic South Africa. And there were many changes that people have said confused the education system and left the teachers unsure as to what exactly they should do and how. Would you agree with that?
Change is difficult. Change requires a huge system capability to drive that change. It requires more than policies and legislation. It requires putting into place at every level within the system the support and understanding that is required. There was also huge impatience for change, as you would remember. People who had struggled against apartheid and its functionaries were very unhappy to know that in the first years of our new democracy, we were dependent on the very infrastructure and apartheid education departments while the new education department was being put into place. I think what that led to is often a sense that policy alone would drive changes, whereas in fact to think that you have a policy and assume that it's being implemented is what I now understand to be magical thinking. So if we want to see real change in schools, we have to support teachers, school management teams to do things differently and to believe that the things that we want them to do will work for them in their context. So the challenge of change over the last 25 years is that the need for change has been enormous. The scope of change has been extraordinarily broad to cross all of the neglects of the past, but we have not sufficiently put into place all of the systems that are needed to support teachers to understand that change and make it real in the classroom.
And then you have so many disruptions happening, including the Internet of Things, which will require not only a shift in the sense that you are talking, but the methodology, the orientation, and the ability to operate in a virtual world. What gives you hope? What are the touch points that when you look at, you think it's not all lost and we can salvage this?
Okay, there's two things. The first, I have to respond before I go on to what gives me hope about the, I'll use the word again, almost magical thinking of the new IT industrial revolution, etc., fourth industrial revolution, is that I know that there's amazing things happening, and I'm seeking to understand those possibilities more and more. Where I'm stumped is because for the majority of learners and the majority of schools, we have not yet created the ecosystem for them to be able to benefit from the possibilities of IT. There's not adequate instruments in terms of the devices that people need. There's not an adequate support system to maintain those devices. The data costs for accessing the web are extremely high. The web coverage is not reliable everywhere that it should be. And I would say that for 80% of learners, the hope of using IT for learning is a very distant hope. And this has to be addressed because it is exacerbating inequalities as we see under COVID. Where I see hope in the system, and I feel very strongly about what I'm going to say, and one of the reasons I feel strongly here, what gives me hope is the determination and the concern and the efforts of ordinary teachers across the country.
Right.
When I say that, that goes counter to the narrative I almost have to push back too hard against the people who constantly are blaming teachers, blaming the unions, saying it's just that our teachers are useless. I think that we don't adequately recognize the incredible commitment under very difficult circumstances that our
Mm,
teachers continue to show. And they're there because they care about community. They're there because they care about learners. And if we can start recognizing that as a resource and
mm,
supporting them properly and
yeah.
stop blaming, I think we would do much better, Victor.
Okay, we're going to talk about what you're doing exactly in that regard. But Mary Metcalfe, thank you very much for this Women's Month conversation.